So when we talk about children and we see this little girl putting her hand around this little boy, we say, "Isn't that sweet? Does she have a crush on him? Do you like him like that? Oh, you're kissing this little boy and he's being kissed by her. Do you want to marry her someday?" Somebody might say, "I wanted to marry the little girl down the street. I thought we were going to be a couple older." We might say to this little boy, "You sit so close to Mrs. So-and-so in third grade. Do you want to bring her a birthday gift?" You sit to this little girl so close to Mr. So-and-so. Do you want to bring him a Valentine's gift? We provide heterosexual language, heterosexual imaging to children every day. Storybooks, everything is heterosexual, cisgender imagery. We would never say to these two little girls, "Do you have a crush on each other? Do you want to marry each other someday?" We would never say to these two little boys, "You sit so close to Mr. So-and-so. You want to get him a special birthday gift?" We don't give gay and lesbian language. We don't give LGBT language to children. And people, if we do, then we're accused of sexualizing children. Well, that doesn't sexualize children any more than already is happening with the other children. And it's not even sexualizing them, it's romanticizing their relationships. Maybe we shouldn't be doing it at all, but it's done. So in this book called When I Knew, it came out in the 90s, or maybe it was the early 2000s. I always say to myself, I'm going to put it here so I can't remember the author's name. But he said, "Hey, I want your stories of when you first knew." Because an LGBT person, this is something you could ask as a therapist in the therapy room. When did you first know? Because some people will say, especially if we heterosexually marry, I never did, but if somebody, let's say I married a woman, and people would say, "Well, why did you marry a woman if you knew you were gay?" In the early stages of coming out, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, you know you're attracted to men, but you don't know you're gay. Again, there's no language to children. You're getting language to be heterosexual and cisgender. So you may think, "Oh, it's a fetish. Maybe I'm kinky. Maybe it'll pass." But it doesn't feel like it's who I am. It's just some kind of erotic, fetish, kinky thing in my head. So, but we all, if you ask an LGBT person about early experiences, like for instance, me, I had a crush on this kid named Billy Ramnick. The showers were really erotic for me in gym class in the 70s. You had to go into every day after gym, you had to go into the showers, which actually was torture for me because I was afraid that people would see that I was looking. So I tried not to look, but I was also afraid of erections because when you're in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, your erections come when you don't even want them to come. And there's one other thing I was going to say about that. Oh, and then when I was a Cub Scout in the 70s, you couldn't go into a school pool without getting showers beforehand. And so here I am, a Cub Scout, and all of a sudden we're told get naked, and we have to go in the showers and then put our suits on and go into the pool. Well, I'm only 8 years old at the time, but I was mesmerized by seeing these other boys because I'd only seen my penis. Now I see their penises, but I had a special interest in it that I didn't have language for around it. So those are my when I knew early that I was not like other people, other straight men. This guy wrote a book called Born This Way. He did part 1 and part 2, and he said, "I don't want your stories. I want your pictures that show your story that you might not be straight or you might not be cisgender." So I submitted my picture. This is me as a little 10-year-old boy, or I think I might be 9. I'm not sure. But, look, I always tell people, if you want to know if your son is gay, take a picture of him. He'll pose. Look at me. And I was taught as a kid, don't pose like that. I remember, don't cross your legs like a girl. Don't talk like a girl. Don't walk like a girl. But this picture shows me that I was intact as a femme boy. I was just feminine. What is homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, and lesbian phobia? I say these in particular because each phobia has its own unique way of discrimination. And however you feel about social media, I know I talk a lot about it because I'm so much on there, but I had never heard the term misogynoir. I heard the term misogyny, the hatred of women, but misogynoir was created to understand the misogyny against Black women, which is different. They get a different discrimination than do white women. So I want you to understand that even though we might be saying homophobia all the time, it's a different kind of phobia than bis, trans, and lesbians get. And it usually comes from fear, disgust response, people having a disgust response, or hatred of people who have same-sex interests. It's prejudice. It's negative. It comes from being ignorant or naive. Most people are just naive. And once they get to know us and they're around us, things can change. They don't always change for people, but they can. You should know what a microaggression is. So homophobia is an active way of being hateful to somebody, where a microaggression is more covert. It was coined by Chester Pierce to describe what he found were dismissals he regularly witnessed non-Black Americans inflict on African Americans. Now we talk about microaggressions being used as insults and dismissals to LGBT, to women, and to men. And when you think about it toward people of color, what Chester Pierce taught us was these examples. Assuming somebody of color is a criminal. Oh, yeah, When I Knew. Oh, thank you. It was by Robert Trachtenberg. Thank you. So assuming that, so white people will say, I hate going to a department store and having a salesperson follow me. I don't want to be upsold. I don't want to try to sell me stuff. People of color will say, I know they're following me because they think I'm going to steal something. Being seen as second-class citizens, ascribing lesser intelligence, assumed to be inferior because they're someone of color. This all comes from the book called That's So Gay by Kevin Nadel. It's such a great book. I highly recommend it. It's a little dated. I haven't read it, but I mean, I think it came out 10 years ago or something. Still very good. And then the microaggressions toward LGBT, I'm not going to go into each one, but endorsing, it's okay that you're gay and lesbian just as long as you act straight. It's okay that you're trans as long as you act male or female the way you say you are. These are microaggressions. Somebody might say, oh, Joe and Mike, you've been together 31 years. Do you know John and Sam in Chicago? They've been together 29 years. Yeah, we all know each other. You know, somehow we all just stay in touch. No, how would I know John and Sam in Chicago? However, if they're Jewish, we might be related. So if you tell me something about their last names and where they live, that's kind of a joke, but it is kind of true Jewish geography. But it isn't true just because we're gay. Exoticization. Oh, I would love for you to be my gay BFF. Oh, you remind me of Will or Jack from Will and Grace, kind of thing. And assuming that the way we have sex is pathological or wrong or bad or sinful even, right? Okay, so there are micro assaults. These are explicit homophobic. They're not said to you, and I still hear these in male spaces. I might be in a locker room at a gym, and somebody might say queer or faggot, not to someone, just in general. And there I am sitting there having to listen to somebody say something pejorative about me, something that affects me. Micro insults are unconscious and unintentional, subtle, like glares of disgust. And you can ask these questions to your clients. Have you ever experienced these things? What was it like when you did, if you did? I don't know if you know this, but since 2016, hate crimes have gone up 15% toward same-sex couples simply for holding hands in public through a park or through a mall or anywhere. Because people get bothered by watching PDAs, right? Straight people do it all the time, but it's different reaction when people see same-sex couples doing it. And then micro-invalidation, this is kind of, I believe, what happens to all of us as LGBT children. We're not seen as anything but straight. So I like to say to parents, and you might think about this question yourself, to say to parents, ask them, what will you say to your child if they come out LGBT? Most people would say, why would I think about asking that question or think about my child being LGBT? Because you might be raising an LGBT child. So you can ask your clients, what kinds of things did you hear in your family that were either supportive or not supportive around LGBT? I've had clients tell me, my dad drove by a gay bar and said, that's where all the fags go to dance. My mother caught me looking at porn and she said, you're not a lesbian, are you? To a female child. Those things, and then later they might apologize. Oh my God, I'm so sorry I said that. I didn't know. And now the grown child might say, well, I appreciate your apology, but when you said it, you meant it, and it's a shame imprint. I never forgot it. Most LGBT people never forget those early negative things that are said, even if they're unintentional.